Welcome back to Turning Hard Times to Good Times. I'm your host, Jay Taylor. Really pleased to have with me once again Dr. Quinton Hennigh. He is no stranger to this show. He's been on many times with Noble Resources, more recently with Irving Resources, and today he's with us to talk about a company he's an advisor to, that's Lion One Metals. It's a sponsor to this show. It's one of my favorite stocks as well. The company trades in Canada and the U.S. There's 118 million shares out, approximately. At least that's my latest count. Selling at about $1.50 in U.S. money, down 8 or 9 cents today. Selling in a very difficult day, and I might say that that's not a very hard hit for a day like today when gold is down more than $100 an ounce. So it leaves it with a market cap, the Lion One Metals, with a market cap around 179, call it 180 million U.S. dollars. Well, thanks for joining me again, Quinton.
Absolutely, Jay.
It's really always good to have you with us. Before you became an advisor to Lion One Metals, Wally Bachman, who heads up the company, did a really good job in outlining a small but high-margin gold project. I think they had something like, I can't remember the exact number of ounces, but they were 9 grams per ton. It looked pretty good, but it was kind of smallish, and that's Tuvatu, I guess is the way you pronounce it, project in Fiji.
Yes.
Then more recently, you came along, and what you saw there convinced you that this had the chance of being something much, much bigger. In fact, what you call an alkaline type gold project. What have you discovered since you become involved? Because a fair amount of work has gone into that now to examine your hypothesis. And what have you found so far with the work that's been done since you joined the company as an advisor?
Well, I'll kind of start out with a little background about the deposit type, and then I'll lead up to that, because the recent drill intercept we have is very, very impressive and tells us a lot about what's going on in this system. All right, so many geologists have the view that things like Tuvatu are what we call low sulfidation epithermal systems. That's a fancy word for hot spring deposit. And hot spring deposits are formed when you have shallow hot waters that come up. They often bring gold and silver with them, and they kind of cool off, interact with groundwaters and stuff, and they deposit high-grade veins. But those type veins often have a very limited vertical profile. They might be 300 or 400 meters at most. It's not to say that low sulfidation systems are not a good target. They're a very good target because they can generate very high-grade deposits. So don't get me wrong. It's just that there's a subtle difference between that and these alkaline gold systems that is often unappreciated in the geologic community. Okay, what I'm getting at is that these alkaline systems, they're generally, the gold in them is generally deposited in by different mechanisms. Okay, it's not deposited in a hot spring environment so much as it is by rapid ascent from a deep-seated pluton or magma in the ground. Okay, so what you have in these cases, you have magmas that the reason they're called alkaline is because they have a lot of potassium, an alkaline metal. So these magmas, they come up and they park themselves maybe 3, 4, 5 kilometers below the surface. They start to cool, crystallize, and then differentiate liquid. So liquid comes out of the magma, water basically, and CO2 and other things. But it also concentrates things like gold, basically elements that do not fit well into other minerals. So things like gold and some other oddballs like tellurium, vanadium, and stuff, they tend to get concentrated in these fluids. And what happens is, very, very late in the process, the pressure builds up, and then pop, these things have to make their way to surface. They basically follow whatever crack and fissure in the ground they can, and they explode out of the ground, kind of like soda out of a bottle, say. Okay, so these fluids, they come rising up very rapidly through the crust, and as they do so, they deposit gold very, very rapidly and often in abundance, because the fluids are effectively saturated in gold. All right, well, this is a wonderful phenomenon because it can generate some very high-grade deposits. The other aspect of these that one has to appreciate is that because these fluids are just basically forcing their way up into any nook and cranny, the fractures that often host the gold are tiny. They're like a few millimeters up to maybe a few centimeters wide. And so these are not big stonking veins like you'd see in many low sulfidation systems. These are often little tiny but extremely high-grade fracture networks that you're chasing. Okay, so let's jump to Tuvatu. Okay, I love alkaline systems. I grew up here in Colorado. We have Cripple Creek, which is one of the biggest in the world. I worked at Springpole up in Canada. When I joined Gold Canyon there, the deposit was, I think, a few 100,000 ounces, maybe 400,000 or 500,000 ounces, and we got it up to 5 million. Okay, so these things often deliver a lot of gold. All right, so when I went to Tuvatu for the first time after talking to Wally, this was in January of 2019. I saw what I liked, about these systems. I saw that evidence of that very, very high-grade gold event in some of the little fractures and stuff visible in core. Okay, so I got quite excited, and the thing that told me is that down there somewhere, they're probably, we're probably going to find a root feeder. Like, think of it like the main highway that brought fluids up from depth. Okay, and when you find the main feeder, and it's not going to be like a big vein, like I said, it's going to be like a vein network, or little fracture networks. When you find it, it's going to be exceptionally high grade and generally wider than the typical drill intercepts you see on the property. And that's what we hit a couple of weeks ago. So look, it took a bit of science. We did some geophysics called CSAMT. We did some geochemical work. We did some studying of the existing drill holes and data. And, what we concluded is everything that's been drilled to date are like the upper branches of a tree. Okay, and those branches are coalescing. They're coming down as they go down in the ground, and they're forming a trunk. Okay, so our goal has been to find that trunk, the feeder to this system. We started some holes earlier in the year. Back up. Late last year, we hit a very high grade intercept. We hit like 4.2 meters or so of 33 grams. It was a very, very good intercept, and it was really at the bottom of the system. We could see we were getting close to something. Okay, so we targeted 2 holes earlier in the year. COVID hit. Things got complex. We didn't have all the drill pipe we needed on site. Without going into detail, it was a little disappointing because we had these 2 holes basically ready, like pre-colored, ready to go through the target zone. And typhoon hit in April. They kind of washed the holes out, so we couldn't re-enter them. So we had to drill a brand new hole from surface. Okay, which it was annoying, but that's life. So we started drilling this hole back in June, and then about late July, we had an announcement. The hole hit 14.7 meters, I believe, 46 grams per ton. Right. Okay, that jumps out. Okay, first of all, the intercept is much longer than anything reported to date on site. 14.7 meters. That's a very long intercept. What's it true with? Well, we don't quite know right now, but we suspect it's on the order of half of that because of the angle of the hole. But still, it's a very broad intercept. Second thing that jumps out is grade. To hit just phenomenal grade like that tells you you're in the root system, you're in the feeder system. So, basically we tested the hypothesis, and we've now proven it. Okay, so this is exciting. What does it mean for the project? Well, like you said earlier, Wally and his team had a very good resource there, a high grade, what would make a nice high grade, but smallish underground mine. Now, with this information, we can see that the system is wide open at depth. In fact, it's getting better, bigger and better. So this is very exciting. It tells us that this project could morph from being kind of on the small mine scale to perhaps something much, much bigger. This is the same story that Placer was faced with at Porgera way back in the 1980s. They were drilling and drilling and drilling at Porgera, and they were up to maybe 2 or 3 million ounces of we'll call it, small lodes, like you see at Tuvatu. They were basically small lodes, and they were debating maybe we should mine this in an open pit, maybe we should do this, maybe we should. And then all of a sudden they hit the high-grade feeder. In that case, it was called the Romane structure. anyway, this and it was called the number 7 zone. Ultimately, that was the high grade root of the Porgera system, and it delivered a huge amount of gold. I can't remember; it's like 10 plus million ounces, very high grade. Okay, so here we have a similar story. They've been drilling away for years now at Tuvatu, lots of small lodes. Narrow. When I say small, I mean narrowish kind of lodes. And here we finally slammed into the what appears to be a root feeder to. Is this all we're going to find? Look, I don't think so, because the CSAMT tells us the feeder system is pretty extensive down there. I'm very optimistic. I'll say that this thing is going to lead to bigger and better news over time.
Right, and this is potentially a very large target. I believe the company recently picked up some more ground, I think maybe over the last couple of years. And as I understand it, you're looking at something like 7 kilometers of strike, possibly?
That's right. Look, they did pick up they picked up the Navalawa tenement, which is to the north. And Navalawa has the same geology as Tuvatu. We're finding lodes at surface. They're excavating up there right now, trenches and road cuts, and they're seeing very similar mineralization up there. It's exciting, but again, we're at the top of the system. Okay, so it's going to take some creative drilling to drill down and get that target, that feeder type target at depth. But I'm very, very confident it's there at this point. I think this is an enormous system, and I think over the next couple of years, as we explore this thing, it'll be very clear that it's much larger, but also much higher grade down in that root feeder zone. What does that mean for the price? Well, it means you're not going to have a mine that cranks out, say sub 100,000 ounces. You might have something that generates considerably more gold and at a much, much better grade, and resulting lower margin, higher margin, lower cost.
Mm-hmm. Now, Quinton, I want to ask you. You've sort of hit one of the bigger branches, but not the trunk yet. Is that an appropriate analogy of what you hit?
I'm going to say we hit a mighty big branch, if not the trunk. Okay, when you start seeing this kind of width and that kind of grade, you got to be pretty darn close. So I think we figured it out. I think this is it.
All right. So, but these are expensive holes. How well financed is the company to go ahead? How much drilling will you be doing in the next, through the end of this year into 2021?
Yeah, sure. We're going to have 4 rigs going ultimately here. We got another, we'll call it deep rig coming in right now. I think it arrives this week. So we'll have 2 deeper penetrating rigs, and then 2 shallow type rigs. We plan on drilling, somewhere on the order of 15 to 20,000 meters, on a yearly basis for the next couple of years. So we have $15 million in the bank. Of course, the company is doing a financing right now. That's not my department, so I don't know where they're at exactly with it, but I think everything's progressing quite well. So, look, the company should have plenty of cash. Of course, the warrants are all in the money, which is a good thing. Now, they also would like to put in the small mine. Okay, so it's in the plans, and while I'm focused on exploration, I know there's very concrete plans developing very quickly around putting in a mine, and I've urged them to look at putting a decline down, to access this high grade zone. I think this could be a very, very big benefit to that kind of a scenario.
Yeah, sure. And as I look at it, I think something like 468,000 ounces, 9.7 grams per ton, with a 3-gram cutoff is the numbers I'm looking at. So do you see that possibility? It's not that often that the companies can go from exploration to successful production, but of course, Wally Bachman's been looking to move in that direction before you came along with your Alkaline system. I guess the goal would be to generate cash flows that can be used to finance the exploration of this much bigger system, right?
In this case, I think it's attainable. Look, you don't hit grades like this too often. These are phenomenal grades, and the thing is fully mine permitted, so they can put the mine in. I think there's a very sharp focus by the Fijian government to see these kind of things happen. Jobs. So, look, I think the momentum's there. I think that they got the team there. They got the support of the government. It's all systems go. And now we have a high-grade discovery. Not a higher grade, I should say, discovery, right below the existing deposit. What better scenario could you get?
Yeah, it really is good. And of course, today, notwithstanding today's decline in the gold price, it's still a rip-roaring gold bull market in my view. And so we should be looking for, looking for drill results from time to time, right? When might we see the next ones?
Look, the announcement we had in late July was the feeders on it was actually higher in the hole. I think we figured out why it was, by the way. So we've got some news coming on the bottom of that hole. That hole continued down to target depth, and then we're now, obviously we're drilling some more holes at the moment. So I would say there's going to be a steady flow of news, probably some even in the short to medium term coming up here. So.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you very much, Quinton, for that update. It is really an exciting story, and always good to follow what you're doing with the various companies. But this is really a dandy. I love it a lot. I own it, and of course, it's one of my favorites in my newsletter as well. Thank you so much for being with us, and we'll look to talk to you again sometime soon.
Thank you, Jay.